Hello and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the Up the Volume scarf, which is a really wonderful scarf using a jumbo weight yarn called Red Heart Collage. This is the down and dirty video, meaning we're going to move through quick in this video with the instructions. If you're an absolute beginner, I'm going to suggest that you watch the absolute beginner video. You can find a link to it right there. It's this exact video, only longer, so that way you can learn a little bit more in-depth instructions for how to complete this scarf. If you're a relatively advanced beginner and you just kind of want to get some tips and tricks, this is the video for you. Join me as we carry on with this free pattern that can be found in the video description box right down there below, along with the list of materials, and we'll jump in and get started. The knitted cast on is really great for beginners to learn because it mimics the actual knit stitch. We start off with a slip knot. We will place that slip knot on our needle. Once you have your slip knot on your needle, I'm going to take my right hand needle, go into that slip knot. You'll see I'm holding both of my needles with my left hand. Take my right hand, I'm going to grab the working yarn, and I'm going to go around my right hand needle. Now I want to maintain tension on this yarn, okay? And what I want to essentially do is I want to have this loop I just put on my right hand needle. I want to pull it through this loop that's on my left hand needle. So all I'm going to do, if you can see here, I'm going to swing my right hand needle back through that loop that I went into, and I'm bringing through the loop I had on there. You see? So now I have two loops, right? I have one over here that I started with and this one I just created. I want to put this one I just created over here on my left hand needle. So I'm going to take my left hand needle, and this is very important. I'm going to swivel it and I'm going to scoop at that stitch and put it on the needle. Okay, swivel and scoop, it's very important. Now I have two stitches on my left hand needle. I want to take my right hand needle and working into the new stitch I just put on there, I'm going to repeat this process. I will go into that new stitch. I'm grabbing both of my needles. I'm going to take my working yarn, wrap it around my right hand needle. I want to maintain tension here, okay? Find some way to maintain tension. And don't be afraid to hold on to that stitch so it doesn't fall off of the left hand needle. And we want to take our right hand needle and swing it back through that stitch, and it brings out the loop that we wrapped. Okay, so now we have the two here. Now I'm going to take my left hand needle, I'm going to swivel and scoop that stitch and put it onto my needle. Now it's important I move these down here to this portion of my needle, because if I kept them up here, they're going to be too small, okay? Because the size of our stitches are going to take the size of the needle that we're using. So if they're up here in the tapered section, they're going to get too small. I now have 14 stitches and I'm ready to jump in with my knitting for the body of the scarf. As I mentioned, one of the reasons I like to show beginners the knitted cast on is because it is so close to the actual knit stitch. This is how close it is. You ready? Here we go. We are going to go ahead and we are knitting now. You ready? This is what we're going to do the rest of the scarf. We're going to go in the front door, around the corner, out the window, but this time we want our stitches to start on our right hand needle. So instead of swiveling and scooping, the stitch we went into, we're going to let that jump off the left hand needle. We're going to call it jumping off the porch. So I'm just going to take it and scoot it off my left hand needle, just like that. Okay. So now I have one stitch over here on my right hand needle and all of these over here on my left. We are knitting the stitches from the left hand needle onto the right hand needle. We go in the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, You ready? You could scooch these up as you work along. Off the porch, in the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch, in, around, out, off. Last one, in, around, out, off. We now have this spare needle here, and this will now become our right hand needle, and we'll take all of these stitches and put them on our left hand to become our left hand needle. Now I haven't transferred yet because I want to show you, see how I'm knitting and how it starts to spiral around? That's totally okay and perfectly normal. What you do want to do though is make sure that you have all of these stitches nice and straight before you transfer your needle over. So after I have all my stitches here, I take my needle, I place it over here in my left hand, and I begin the whole process again. So this is it, you guys. You are actually knitting. We are going to just go ahead and work through this entire process again, okay? Now, a couple things I want to make sure I point out because this is the big boo-boos that beginners do. Because this last stitch here looks a little bit loose, we have a tendency to try and take our yarn and pull that up like that to tighten up that stitch. What that does is you've actually now pulled up this purl bump and it makes it look like there's two stitches. And so all of a sudden you're going to start growing your stitches because you'll work into each one of those. You do not want to pull up that purl bump. You see that purl bump right there? You want to make sure that you always see that purl bump when you begin, okay? This looseness down here, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It comes out perfectly fine. But the nature of beginner knitters and advanced knitters alike is that we like to have those nice and tight. And so we think that by pulling up this yarn and tightening that up makes it better. And it doesn't. It's actually going to cause you more problems. So when you turn your work and you have your needle in your left hand, you'll notice you have all these little bumps. Okay, those are purl bumps. And the purls are showing up because the back side of a knit is a purl. So that's why every time you turn your work, you're going to see purls even though you were just knitting, okay? So what we want to do here is we have all these nice purl bumps. Our work is nice and it's coming off of the bottom of our needle. We do not want it coming off the top of our needle. We always want it coming down, flowing down from our needle. And we begin the process. So you want to make sure you do not accidentally go into the purl bump. You want to go into the loop that is on your actual needle. So you go into that stitch just like before, yarn over your needle, come out the stitch and jump off. In the front door, around the corner, out the window, off the porch. And you do this all the way down the row. As you work along, go ahead and take your stitches and just move them up a little bit on your left-hand needle so that way they're towards the end for you to be able to work with. You never want to take your stitches here and stretch them apart at this point. Okay, you want to make sure that your needles are nice and close together and that your stitches are always going down to the body of your needle. See how all my stitches are always down there? I'm not keeping them up here in the red zone unless I'm working into them. So I'm there, I'm working into it, I'm yarning over, I'm coming out, but when I come off, that stitch becomes part of the body of my knitting needle. Now that you know how to cast on and how to knit, let's go ahead and carry on knitting away, okay? So knit, 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 knit. That's all we're going to do until our scarf measures 72 inches. But there will be a time when you need to add a new ball of yarn. So let me show you how to do that. It's super easy. We want all of our joins to be at the edge. So only join your new ball of yarn at the edge here. And this is how we're going to do it, okay? I want you to go ahead and with your new ball of yarn, take your strand, and I want you to just tie it around the yarn you've been using, okay? I'm just tying it right on there, just like that. And what this will do is you can slide this tie all the way up to your needle. You see that? See how I just slide that all the way up there? Now, I'm going to ignore my tail here, okay? I'm just going to ignore that. And what I will do is I will carry on knitting. Only this time, I'm going to use the new strand of yarn I just tied on. So my other yarn's just going to hang out there. I'm not going to worry about it. I just carry on knitting, and I am using my new ball of yarn. But when it's time to weave in your ends, which we will do later on, you'll notice that I will untie that knot so that way I don't have a knot in my knitting, and then I'll weave in my ends. Okay, you have everything you need to know to get to the end of the body of the scarf. Go ahead and knit the scarf as far as you want it to go. So if it's 72 inches, great. If it's 60 inches, great. You do what you want to do. Okay, I have knit a little bit of fabric here, and let's take a look at it. You can see that the collage yarn is really cool in that the color changes of the yarn start to show up as you're working along, which is kind of fun because it allows you to get excited to see what the next color is going to be, right? And once your scarf is as long as you want it to be, it's time to do what's called bind off. And this is really great, and I promise you it'll make your scarf perfect. So let's go ahead and knit our first 2 stitches. I have my 2 stitches there. I'm going to take my left hand needle, go into the front leg of those 2 stitches, take my yarn, wrap it around my right hand needle, and then I want to take this wrap that I just did, that wrap right there, and I want to pull it through those 2 stitches. So I pull it through. Okay. So now that I have that pulled through, I'm going to let these 2 stitches fall off. So I'm left with 1 stitch. I knit 1 more, and I repeat. You ready? Take my left hand needle, go into the front leg of those 2 stitches. You see that? Take my yarn, wrap it around my right hand needle, and now I'm going to bring my right hand needle back through those 2 stitches. Okay? Now those 2 stitches are joined together, and I can let them fall off my left hand needle. What you're doing is you're binding off, but see how much stretchier that bind off is? It just makes it a nice stretchy bind off, like our beginning. It's a nice stretchy cast on. Let me continue to show you how to do this. It might seem a little bit awkward to start, but once you get the hang of this, you'll be like, oh, I'm good to go. Just remember, it's just like knitting. We're just coming through those stitches. So I'm knitting. So I get 2 stitches on my right hand needle. Left needle goes into the front leg. Yarn over my right hand needle. Bring my right hand needle through those 2 stitches. And then let those stitches fall off my left hand needle. Here we go. Check it out. It's the last one here, right? So I'm off. I have 1 stitch left. I can go ahead, I'm going to cut my tail, and I'm always going to leave about 4 to 6 inches, okay? I'm going to cut it, and then what I could do is I could take my needle out, and I could just grab this yarn, and let's thread it through. You see how I'm putting my fingers through that loop, I'm grabbing that yarn, and threading it through, and giving it a pull, and here I have my finished bind off stitches up here at the top. See how nice and stretchy they are? See how nice and stretchy my cast on stitches are down here at the bottom? So they match each other. Okay, pretty cool. When you're done with the scarf, the next thing we need to do is weave in all of our tails. These are the areas where you had to join your new ball of yarn, or you began your knitting, or you ended your knitting. If you'll remember here at the start, I did tie on my new ball of yarn to my old color. And so I just undid my knot here. And once I undo the knot, I do want to make sure that I stretch off that end just a little bit so that I'm not accidentally pulling that. See, if I pull that real tight, it gets it kind of scrunched up. So I want to make sure that I'm not pulling that tight. And now I want to weave in my tails. You can see right here, I've already unspun this one a little bit. And because we're working with a bulky yarn, that's why I like to undo my yarn a little bit so that way it will be easier to weave in. So once again, I'm threading it on. And this time, instead of going this way, I'm going to go up. So let's go ahead. We're going to thread through the stitches still, or through the yarn. See how I'm threading it through the fiber itself? And I'm going to come up. Okay, it's almost like burying our ends, as my friend Ann Burke would call it. When I come back down this direction, I want to make sure that I'm going into the yarn that I worked into the first pass and the yarn that I actually worked through the first pass. So I'm pulling that all through itself. Again, so that it grabs onto itself, okay? I want to make sure, see, it's nice and stretchy still. It's not pulled super tight, right? So I'm going to pull this one more time. I'm going to go 3 times. I think it's just, I feel safer with 3 times. And there you have it. So for me, this is what I like to do. I like to always go up along the side, because then later on in your knitting career, that's where you usually will add an edging or something else. You can really hide in those ends. I like to do as little as possible as far as weaving in through the body. I like to do it along the sides or along seams. And it's really great, right? Isn't that nice? Like that's a nice little tidy woven in tail. So we want to make sure we do that. Now the last part of our scarf, which really gives it the pièce de résistance, are the tassels, right? And those are really easy to make. The pattern suggests that we cut 48 lengths of 12-inch strands of yarn. The instructions want us to hold 3 strands of yarn together for each fringe knot. And she has us doing 8 fringe knots for either side of the scarf, for either end. You take your 3 strands of yarn and you want to fold them in half. Okay, so I have them folded in half. And then the instructions say to use your crochet hook and pull that strand through the edge of the scarf. Well, remember I told you I was going to show you how to do it with and without a crochet hook. So let me show you without a crochet hook to start. It's as easy as coming down here, putting your finger through the loop where you want your fringe knot to be. Go ahead and you will grab the 3 strands at the half point, pull them up, and then working through the loop you just pulled up, just grab those strands and pull them through. Give that a pull up, and you have your tassel added. You'll notice that if I go through and I pull up on this side, it puts the knot on the opposite side. So depending on which side of your scarf you want to be the public side, you want to make sure your knots are all facing the same side, okay? It's especially important as you're doing one full side, like maybe your cast on edge, and then you switch to do your bind off edge. Make sure as you're wearing your scarf that your knots are going to show up on the same side. Let me go ahead and undo this one, and I'm going to show you how to do it with a crochet hook now. And I'm just going to grab a nice big crochet hook, and it's the same process. You will simply fold the strands in half, put your crochet hook in where you want your tassel to be, grab the ends, pull those through. So now I have this loop, and it's just like before. I grab and I thread them through, give it a pull, and I have a nice tassel. Not bad for your very first big stitch scarf, right? It's nice and easy because you have these nice big needles, this nice big yarn, and you have me to show you how to do all these little tips and tricks and how to work this scarf up along the way. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll come back here for more how-to videos for both knitting and crochet right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Just hit subscribe so you're up to date whenever there's a new video released. And last but not least, smash that like button, as my kids say. I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm Marley Bird, proud spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns. Hey, don't leave yet. I'm sure there are other videos here that you will enjoy. Go ahead and check out some of my knitting and crochet videos, as well as some of my crafting videos. You will love them, I promise. If you hit subscribe, you'll be up to date whenever there's a new video released. And as my kids say, don't forget to smash that like button. Bye. Everything you need to know about knitting or crochet can be found right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Learn with Marley Bird. Visit youtube.com/Marley Bird.